This is the Trailseeker. You can think of it as a sort of electric Outback, but it also happens to be the quickest and most powerful factory Subaru to date. Let's take a look, shall we? So how quick and powerful are we actually talking? Well, both locally offered variants pack 280 kilowatts of power and will launch from 0 to 100 in a claimed 4.5 seconds. Now this is courtesy of a dual motor powertrain that draws current from a 74.7 kilowatt hour battery pack and provides between 488 and 533 k's of range depending on the variant. But how much does it cost? Well, the entry-level all-wheel drive, that starts from $63,990 plus on-road costs, whereas the flagship Touring goes from near enough $70. Headline equipment on the base all-wheel drive includes faux leather upholstery, power-adjustable and heated front seats, a 7-inch driver's display, dual wireless phone charging pads, ambient interior lighting, a heated steering wheel, 18-inch alloys, and a 360-degree view camera. The Touring all-wheel drive ups the ante with blue genuine leather upholstery, 20-inch alloy wheels, a panoramic glass roof, advanced park assist and vehicle-to-load capabilities. Now, if you're expecting a sleek and clean interior to match the exterior, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. There are a whole heap of angles and creases and crevices in here, and on the road at least we counted more than 6 different textures and finishes for the interior plastics. The 14-inch infotainment system is easy to use and presents well, but these climate controls, they really lack tactility, and the actual digital display in the middle of them, it lags behind, so it can make setting your temperature a bit of a pain in the ass. Other complaints? Well, there's no glove box for starters, which, I mean, that's kind of obvious, guys. Come on. Yes, you do get this under center console storage, but we really want the compartment under the dash. Other issues? The 7-inch digital dash, it works, it's clear, but it's just a bit clunky, it's a bit dated, it looks a generation behind. And I've got to admit, this is the top spec Touring, and frankly, this blue genuine leather, yes, it's real leather, but it just looks cheap. It cheapens the whole aesthetic. The lower spec Touring with the black leather, or fake leather, definitely does a better job. But what about life in the back? Well, it's actually pretty bloody good. There's heaps of leg room. Headroom is not awful even for me at 6 foot with this panoramic roof. The fold-down armrest has 2 useful cup holders and a device holder. There's map pockets in the back of each front seat. Heated rear seats in both the Touring and the base model. 2 USB-C ports, air vents. Yeah, you could do a lot worse here. But what about the boot? Well, officially, Subaru reckons there are 609 litres behind the rear seats. If you stash them, you'll get more than 1,200 litres. Fill it all the way up to the roof, you're going to get more than 1,600 litres. But crucially, under the floor, there is no spare wheel, not even a space saver, just something, a little nook for the cables. Look underneath, there's no wheel there either. You know, the Forester Hybrid missed out, the Solterra misses out. We don't know about the Uncharted, but I'm willing to bet there's no spare wheel in that. This really needs some sort of spare wheel if you're going to do the whole Subaru adventure lifestyle. Now, the most obvious and biggest question is, how does this thing actually drive? And well, Frank, for the most part, it's really quite good. Now, around town, the Trailseeker feels largely like most other EVs to a certain degree. You really can't tell much just from pottering around. It's comfortable, it's not quite as nimble as the Solterra, but you would imagine that since it's on a significantly longer wheelbase. There's heaps of pickup, it's nice and quiet. It's a perfectly good place to be. My biggest issue on the move is probably with the steering wheel, because there seems to be 18 dozen buttons scattered around, I'm not going to say nonsensically, but there's just so many. And the center binnacle or the horn button is so big and bulky, you kind of lose your reference points compared to in other vehicles. Thanks to that 211 mils of ground clearance, you've got a fairly commanding view of the road, and that's aided by what is ultimately a fairly lofty seating position. For me as a tall bloke, I'm sort of nudging the upper reaches of headroom with the glass roof in this Touring. The base spec all-wheel drive obviously doesn't have that problem because it doesn't have the glass roof. But even so, I still just feel perched. I feel like I'm too tall for the dashboard and the steering wheel, which for the record, the steering wheel is as high as it comes. Now, Subaru call this thing a sports electric vehicle, and whilst it is rather good dynamically, it's definitely not that good, and I'm not going to beat about the bush here. Manufacturers need to stop coming up with wanky acronyms, abbreviations, or new classification types for traditional classes of vehicle. If it's an electric SUV, call it as much. End of. That said, you can hook in and have a reasonably good time in the bends in this thing. Being electric, its center of gravity is really quite low. It doesn't set any new standards for dynamics, but it's predictable, it's safe, it doesn't do anything you're not ready for. The base model all-wheel drive definitely is the pick of the bunch behind the wheel. You're not losing a whole heap of equipment, but it's quieter. It rides nicer. It actually turns in more confidently. Sure, you can't feel quite as much of the road surface through the steering wheel, but what you can feel through the 20-inch wheels on this touring version is the fact that if you're really pushing on, it does want to start pushing the front. It actually detracts from your confidence levels. Now, this trait became particularly apparent on the track, with Subaru surprising the assembled media with 4 supervised laps around Pheasant Wood Raceway. The Titan Technical Circuit flattered the Trailseeker's all-wheel drive grip and revealed a largely safe and secure chassis that would gently push into understeer if you overcooked it. That said, we were impressed with the rear's playful progressiveness off-throttle with plenty of flickability that would be scream on gravel. But what about the ride quality? Well, you probably guessed it, the base model with its 18-inch wheels is the more comfortable of the two. That's not to say that this top-spec touring is uncomfortable, it transmits more road noise, smaller, sharper bumps can kick through the cabin a bit more. It's just, ultimately it feels a little bit less refined, which is weird given you're paying an extra $6,000. You would expect the flagship one to be the pick on the road, but it just isn't. But what about outright performance? Well, with 280 kilowatts on tap, you're never going to be caught short on power, unless of course your battery's flat. This thing, in terms of just sheer overtaking power, get up and go, this will chase a WRX STI into the next postcode and all the way to the next coastline. This is a fast car. It's not stupidly fast like an EV6 GT or a Tesla Model Y Performance, but it's more than enough for everyday driving, more than enough for safe overtakes, and if you're that way inclined, which we definitely don't condone, it's rather good at traffic light Grand Prix. But what about visibility? Well, this is a Subaru, which means you get decently sized, well-shaped mirrors. It's a wagon, which means there's no awful or offensive blind spots. You can see all the way around, even without having to call on with a 360-degree camera. You can just, yep, there it is, we're all good to go. You really can't get much better than a wagon for outright visibility. These seats, they're comfortable, they're well padded, not too firm, not too soft in the classic Subaru way. They're not super aggressively bolstered, which, let's be honest, it's a family SUV, you don't need full-on bucket seats. And that largely follows the trend of this vehicle. It's not that offensive to look at. It's perfectly livable inside the cabin, it's nice enough to steer, it's reasonably capable, the dynamics are good. The pricing is, in terms of the base model at least, really quite competitive for a legacy brand. There's not a whole heap to complain about here. Actually, there is one major complaint beyond the mismatched interior, and that is the lack of a spare wheel. This is a Subaru SUV, which means it is intended to go for adventures off the beaten path, and not having a spare wheel is not good enough. Yes, I know, the Forester Hybrid, you can get the tow ball mounted auxiliary rack, but that is just, it's a band-aid fix at best, and even then, it's not a good one. This thing, I guess maybe you could put a roof basket instead of roof racks and ratchet strap a spare wheel to the roof, but then you're costing yourself precious storage for things like kayaks or mountain bikes or whatever other recreational equipment you might need that won't fit in the boot. Now, unlike the Outback, we can't actually give you a reasonable impression of the Trailseeker's off-road ability, seeing as our venture away from the blacktop on this launch took in nothing more than a well-used gravel road. So there we have it, the Trailseeker, a worthy addition to Subaru's lineup. But the real question is this good enough to tempt people out of their Outbacks or come to the range and choose this instead of an Outback or a Forester? If it was our money, we'd absolutely be settling for the base all-wheel drive. You don't really lose any major equipment. It drives nicer. It's more capable off-road by the time you factor in those bigger tires. You're saving $6,000 and the interior actually looks and feels more premium. But let us know in the comments, Outback owners, would you buy one of these? Or would you stick with your tried and true high-riding petrol wagon?